Picture a world of endless mud, water, and fear, the Western Front in 1916. Imagine waking each day to a landscape scarred by war, where the ground itself seems to swallow hope. The sky is a constant grey, heavy with the threat of rain and artillery fire, and the air is thick with tension and dread. A man-made scar, hundreds of miles long, carved into France and Belgium, the trenches. These winding ditches formed a vast, interconnected network, stretching as far as the eye could see, shaping the very geography of the war. For millions of soldiers, these trenches were home, prison, and grave. The air reeked of decay and chemicals, a constant reminder of death. Every surface was slick with mud, and the walls seemed to close in, offering little comfort or safety. Danger was everywhere, snipers' shells, and the environment itself. Cold seeped in, rain turned earth to swamp, and rats thrived on the dead. Even sleep brought no escape, as the thunder of distant guns echoed through the night, and the threat of sudden attack was ever present. Progress was measured in yards, at the cost of thousands of lives. For the ordinary Tommy, survival meant dry socks, a hot meal, and making it to the next day. Small comforts became precious, and every letter from home was a lifeline to a world that seemed impossibly far away. Most were not professional soldiers, but clerks, farmers, and shopkeepers, now trapped in a war of attrition. Yet, amidst horror, they endured, finding dark humour, camaraderie, and a stubborn will to survive. Bonds of friendship were forged in adversity, and moments of laughter became acts of quiet defiance. This is the story of ordinary men facing extraordinary hardship in the muddy hell of the trenches. Their courage, resilience, and humanity shine through the darkness, reminding us of the true cost of war and the strength of the human spirit. Trenches weren't just ditches. They were a labyrinth built for survival, carefully engineered to shield soldiers from the relentless dangers of the front. The trench system was organized into three main lines: front, support, and reserve, each with its own role, all linked by a maze of communication trenches that allowed movement of troops, supplies, and messages under cover. Trenches zigzagged in sharp angles, a design meant to contain blasts from shells and prevent enemy fire from sweeping down their entire length, making direct attacks more difficult. Inside, wooden planks, sandbags, and fire steps offered some protection from bullets, shrapnel, and the ever-present mud, but comfort was rare. Yet the greatest enemy was often the weather. Torrential rain could turn even the best-built trench into a waterlogged nightmare. Rain and poor drainage transformed trenches into swamps. Men risked drowning in mud, and movement became exhausting and dangerous. Trench foot, numb, swollen, and gangrenous feet, was a constant threat, caused by standing for hours in cold, wet conditions without relief. Shelling could collapse walls in an instant, burying men alive beneath tons of earth and debris, turning the trenches themselves into deadly traps. Both sides dug tunnels beneath enemy lines to plant explosives, making the very ground underfoot a source of constant fear and uncertainty. The trench was a fragile sanctuary, offering some shelter but always at risk of sudden destruction from above or below. Every weakness, whether from nature, enemy action, or simple bad luck, could prove fatal in this landscape designed for killing, where survival was never guaranteed. Life in the trenches followed a strict, monotonous routine, dictated by the demands of war and the ever-present threat of danger. Every day, soldiers awoke to the same cramped, muddy surroundings, their senses dulled by exhaustion and the constant noise of artillery. Each day began and ended with "stand to," rifles ready, nerves taut, eyes scanning the foggy expanse of no man's land for any sign of movement. This ritual was a tense reminder that an attack could come at any moment. Relief came with a ration of rum and a bland breakfast, a small comfort that helped steady frayed nerves and offered a brief moment of normalcy amid chaos. The rest of the day was spent repairing trenches battered by shell fire, cleaning rifles to keep them ready, and writing censored letters home, each word carefully chosen, every message a lifeline to loved ones far away. Sleep was rare, snatched in short bursts amid the constant noise, biting cold, and swarms of lice and rats that infested the trenches. Sentries kept watch, always alert for attack, their eyes straining through darkness and fog, knowing that vigilance was the only defense against sudden death. Units rotated between front, support and reserve lines, with brief rest periods behind the front. These rotations offered little relief, as the threat of returning to the front loomed constantly. These breaks offered a chance to clean up, shave and eat a hot meal, but the respite was always short-lived, and the return to the muddy, dangerous trenches was inevitable. The cycle of duty, danger and exhaustion never ended, wearing down even the strongest spirits and leaving every man changed. Survival depended on discipline, routine, and the hope of making it through another day. Camaraderie and shared hardship became the glue that held units together. The relentless grind shaped every soldier's existence, forging bonds and memories that would last a lifetime, even as the war dragged on. Soldiers improvised to find comfort in the trenches. Most dug small funk holes in trench walls for shelter, barely enough to keep out wind and shrapnel. Keeping warm was a struggle. Extra layers and body heat were essential. Food was monotonous: bully beef, hard biscuits, and watery stew. Tea, sweet and hot, was a daily ritual and a rare comfort. Water was scarce and often contaminated, carried up in petrol cans and purified with foul-tasting chemicals. Even so, a mug of tea was the most prized drink on the front. Survival meant making do with whatever could be scrounged or shared. No man's land was a nightmare: mud, barbed wire, and death. By day it was a deadly void, by night a place of tense patrols and raids. Crossing it meant risking instant death from snipers or machine guns. The greatest strain was waiting for the order to go over the top, a moment of terror and near-certain loss. The psychological toll was immense: constant fear, anticipation, and the randomness of survival. Shell shock, now known as PTSD, was common, with men suffering breakdowns and nightmares. The mental war was as brutal as the physical, leaving scars that lasted a lifetime. For many, surviving the mind's battlefield was the hardest fight of all. The trenches were the factory floor of industrialized killing. The bolt-action rifle was standard, but close combat called for bayonets, clubs, and spades. Machine guns ruled the battlefield, mowing down attackers and forcing armies underground. Artillery was even deadlier. Shells rained down, destroying trenches and men alike. The constant bombardment drove many to madness. New weapons emerged. In 1916, the British unleashed tanks, slow, unreliable, but terrifying to the enemy. Tanks hinted at a future beyond trench warfare. Every innovation aimed to break the stalemate, but often just increased the carnage. The war's weapons changed the face of combat forever. Survival depended on adapting to this relentless arms race. Poison gas was the most feared weapon on the Western Front. Chlorine, phosgene, and mustard gas crept silently, killing or maiming indiscriminately. Early gas masks were crude. Later versions offered better protection, but panic was constant. Mustard gas lingered, burning skin and lungs, blinding and crippling soldiers. Gas alarms and frantic scrambles for masks became routine. The psychological impact was devastating. Soldiers dreaded the invisible threat. Even with masks, breathing was hard and communication nearly impossible. Gas symbolized the war's descent into scientific barbarism. The very air became an enemy, adding a new layer of terror to trench life. Gas attacks left lasting scars, both physical and mental. When the guns fell silent in 1918, survivors returned to a changed world. They bore physical and psychological scars, shell shock, lost limbs, and haunted memories. The war shattered empires, redrew borders, and accelerated social change. Advances in medicine and technology came at a terrible cost. The trenches left a legacy of disillusionment and anti-war sentiment. Art and literature mourned the suffering and futility of the conflict. Today, the trenches are gone, but cemeteries and memories remain, a testament to endurance and sacrifice. The true cost of war endures as a lesson we must never forget.